Maybe you should go and do some contemplating.
Right reasons, right reasons. Being pretty girl for all the right reasons. Right reasons, right reasons. Being pretty girl for all the reasons.
I'm the Bachelorette and I'm rapping to you poolside. Here to find true love, one man from my home.
Hi, I'm Rachel McElroy.
Hi, I'm Griffin McElroy.
And we're parents.
Yay! That wasn't very enthusiastic. We have a very special guest in the studio today. Hi! Hello. Go ahead and introduce it. I'm Hamley. First of all, it's great to have you here. Went through a whole lot just to get you in the studio today. A lot of schedule coordination. But
He's already got a book deal.
You got a book deal, and understandably so, because you're what? You're like 9 days old? Yeah, that's right. And you are talking? Mm-hmm. That's pretty wild. Rachel, you seem pretty chill with this arrangement. I'm like surprised.
This is Rose Buddies.
Mommy, I'm a talking baby. This is going to be the whole episode. I hope you like this creepy baby voice.
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No.
Should we start over?
You know what it is? It's his mic. His mic is wrong. We need to
put a pop filter on it.
Yeah.
I really hit my plosives. He knows the word plosives, babe. This is crazy.
It's beautiful.
We are back after missing last week, and if you're upset about that, I don't know what to tell you. We've been going through some stuff.
Our baby, for those that aren't in the Facebook group or on Twitter.
Oh, you're being so quiet. I think he's good to go. I don't think you. Oh no, he's moving. Okay.
Our baby.
We're gonna be at about this volume.
Our baby was born December 5th.
Nope. Incorrect.
Nope.
That's today's.
That was when he was due.
That's when he was due. That's today, babe.
He was born November 25th.
Mm-hmm. Black Friday. Went into labor on Thanksgiving. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah.
Everybody did great, y'all.
6 pounds 9 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some nice blonde hair.
Beautiful blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I mean, it's got Rachel's
my pouty lips.
Everything.
No, just my lips and my chin.
I didn't get up on this kid at all.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, maybe he'll age into my particular form of.
Maybe he'll have your nimble gaming fingers.
So that's all I've got then is my nimble gaming fingers?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad that you look at me and you see
sometimes
that's a dude that could crush some Donkey Kong.
Sometimes some nimble fingers is all a girl needs.
Hey, baby, our child is in the room. That's close. Thank you all for sticking with us. A lot of folks sent us some great gifts through the P.O. Box throughout this whole process.
We got some great swaddling blankets that we're using regularly from...
We're using one right now.
From Angie Stansel, I believe.
Thank you very much, Angie. We got home and we have 4 special swaddling pieces of machinery, but very few blankets. So that was actually extremely helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a baby now, and... it's going to be pretty wild for a bit.
And there's a break in the Bachelorette franchise right now.
Yes, thank you. I do want to say, Henry, you did come on Thanksgiving, which kind of harshed my buzz. You did come in the evening, so we did get that lunch in, I guess. But you know what? I don't want to.
Yeah, way to put our baby on blast. Episode 1.
It's episode 40. But he was kind enough to wait one day after we finished the Canadian Bachelorette. So thank you very much for that. We literally... things popped off the day after that episode went up. So
yeah. Oh, and we got a real nice note from Jasmine,
the best in the game.
Jasmine herself, just thanking us for putting this community together.
Take this jacket off because there's another person in the studio, and the body heat is different.
Uh-huh.
He's already messing with the flow a little bit. I feel like maybe this was a mistake.
So all that to say, we needed something to watch in the interim.
Oh, and did we find it, guys?
We actually probably would not have thought to look into the show that we're talking about today without the help of some of our Rose Buddies listeners who recommended it to us.
Thank you all, our lifesavers. It's probably the most fun I've had watching television this year, if not the past few years. That is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
We're talking about Terrace House, boys and girls in the city. And I have to really, every time I say it, people think I'm saying Terrorist House, but it's not.
Yeah, or Terra's House.
No, terrace, what's a terrace even? It's like a balcony or something?
Yeah.
All right, it's like that, but house, boys and girls in the city. It is a Japanese reality show that is on Netflix, and you go watch it. Go watch it immediately.
You know what I looked up today?
What did you look up?
Because I wanted to let our listeners know we'd be talking about the whole season.
Oops, we watched 46 episodes. We
Yes.
just had a baby. We had some time on our hands.
46 episodes. Now they're short, right? They're only 30 minutes. So that's a little
It's still an
better.
unconscionable amount of television to watch. Because I feel like we started watching it like the week
Before.
of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We started it like that Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
And now it is. So over the course of 2 weeks, we finished the whole show.
Whoops.
It is, even if you think it is not going to be your jam, I guarantee you it is going to be your jam. It is one of the most finely crafted reality shows I've ever seen, complete with like narrative arcs that put scripted shows to shame. It is the best reality show I've maybe ever seen, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So here's what I thought. So since we watched the whole season, I recognize that a lot of our listeners have not had the time or capacity to do so. So
I know that like my family and our family, specifically Justin and Travis just told me he's dipping into
Travis
it.
dipped
Travis
in?
is dipping
Great.
into now, and I know they're not finished, so I don't want to spoil
Okay.
it for them, and I don't want to spoil it for the rest of our listeners.
So I think maybe for the first 20 minutes, we'll probably at least 20 minutes, we'll talk about the show generally, and then we'll start talking about characters. And if you hear a character's name that you don't recognize, you should probably tap out.
Because here is the thing. And I know there's some people who just aren't going to listen and they just want to hear us talk about it. And y'all can hang, that's fine. I would still encourage you to go listen. Some of the best stuff that happens in this show happens in the last like 5 episodes. The last 5 episodes of this show, it's so good because I was so sad that it was ending because we don't have another television show to leapfrog to right now. We're talking about getting back into Top Chef, but
We're not going to do a Top Chef
no,
podcast.
I mean, it's just going to be like a Tom Colicchio fan cast. Oh, we're good. Let's drop it down a few decibels. The last 5 episodes of this show, you're all worried like, oh no, it's ending, and then the last 5 episodes just come in like it's fucking miraculous the things that happen in the last 5 episodes of this show.
So how is this show different maybe? So there's a lot of comparisons to Real World. A lot of people talk about it as Real World because it is boys and girls in a single dwelling.
I was trying to think if I could do the whole intro that they do for each episode, which was konbanwa, which means good evening. That's like one of 8 Japanese words I know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about like that.
yeah.
Like, so Rachel and I went to Japan on our honeymoon in 2013.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks. We took a 2-week trip. We went to Tokyo. We went to Hakone, which I almost went to, which is like this hot spring resort town about an hour and a half outside of Tokyo. And then we went to Kyoto, which is the old capital of Japan, and just like a lot more traditional and a lot more like older,
a lot of like historic
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the best trip I've ever taken, and like the best 2 weeks of my whole life. And I think we both like since we got back, like since the day we got back, like we've just been dying to get back to some capacity. It will be a while now.
Yeah.
I don't know if Henry will
Well,
appreciate
if
it.
Henry's book does really well,
That's a good point.
maybe his tour will take us there.
Yeah. I want to go to Thailand. We can go to both. I don't understand why it has to be an either or. So I don't. Here's the thing, and I'm trying to think of the best way to talk about this. Like, I wouldn't say you and I are like huge buffs on Japanese culture. Like the best way I can describe it, and I hope this is not like reductive at all, is like I love Japan because we went there and it was like the best place I've ever been. But I'm not like a huge like anime guy. Like, it's not coming from that. Like, I think there is a probably an impression that like if you're a nerdy dude who plays video games and you're into Japan stuff, then you're into like, I guess, like otaku culture.
Yeah.
And that's really not where it's coming from.
No,
I
it's
just
not
think
like
the
I met
coolest.
Griffin and, he revealed to me his deep love of everything Japanese.
No, I mean, I've played fucking Japanese video games all my life, so maybe this is like a weird caveat to put in there. But like,
Yeah.
I just genuinely think it is the coolest country from like a tourism standpoint, and like Japanese food is my favorite food. But we've never watched like a Japanese television show before.
No.
We watched a lot while we were over there, and there's very few subtitles, and so it was all kind of novel, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so wait, let's go back to talking about
Well,
format.
all that was to say, like, I loved Terrace House, but this isn't our niche.
No.
It's just fucking great. Like, it's just great.
No, yeah, like if you're listening to this and you haven't checked it out because you're like, well, I'm not a huge fan of everything Japanese, like neither are we.
Yeah. So the show.
So the show is set up kind of like the real world. 3 men, 3 women live in a house together. And you follow them around as they live their lives.
It's in Tokyo at
Yes.
an undisclosed location in Tokyo.
Yes.
And it takes place over the course of what starts as 18 weeks, but then gets extended to like 36 weeks, and I think it ends at 48 weeks.
And that's
so almost a whole year.
That's about where the similarities end to
Yes.
the real world, because there are a bunch of different components.
Broadly speaking, it is a show in which these 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, try to date each other. There's 2 things. There's really 2 things that they just try to do, and that is either date each other or work towards their extremely lofty ambitions, or towards their
Well,
or
Not all of them are quite so lofty with their ambitions.
right. Those people date. The ones who aren't lofty ambitions,
Yeah.
they just date, and that's fine. Chase your bliss. And what's really wonderful about the show is that everybody is supporting. For the most part, everybody's supporting everybody else in those 2 endeavors.
Yeah.
So there's people who come on the show like, I want to be a professional ballerina, even though there's like 3 of those jobs per year. And everybody's like, you can do it. Work really hard.
Well,
Chase your
yeah.
bliss.
So that's one key difference. So unlike the real world where people kind of pick up and move their lives to wherever the season is, these people all live and maintain their jobs in the city that they already are in.
Some of them come from outside of Tokyo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but most of them already have work set up.
So unlike real world, there's not some big job that all
They
6
all
of them
do
are
together.
expected to work at. They have their lives outside of the house. And in fact, because the working day is like the expectations of the working day are fairly, long hours. There's a lot of time where they're just not at the house. Like most of the scenes don't have all 6 people in them because people are constantly at work.
Yeah.
Some characters, just like you never see, like there will be whole episodes where they are not present. They travel a lot to other countries to like do work in those
and so
countries.
each episode is a week.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're seeing is an entire week distilled into one episode. So you'll usually see everybody at some point, but sometimes they're only in an episode for a few minutes.
Another thing, and we're kind of verging on spoiler territory here, but I'm not going to reveal anything too much that sets it apart from real world, is the cast switches out constantly.
Yeah, so this is interesting. On Real World, a lot of times people will get removed from the show by vote of their castmates, or they have some kind of tragedy or emergency. On this show, the cast will remove themselves if they feel they have accomplished what they wanted to while they were there.
If they've gotten everything that they think they're going to get out of the house, or they
Or-
want to focus
yeah,
on
exactly.
school, or they want to focus on their baseball season or whatever, they will remove themselves from the house. Which is staggering.
And
Which is
sometimes with almost no notice at all. They're
No,
like,
leaving tomorrow, bye.
I'm leaving Terrace House tomorrow.
so the cast is no joke. Every 2 or 3 episodes, somebody's dropping.
And usually the same day or the next day after they leave, somebody new comes in, and it's the same gender. So they always have
And
that
opens
3 on
up
3.
new dating opportunity. Like this is a show about like shipping real people. And that's something that we do constantly when we're watching Bachelor, right? And Bachelorette, like, oh, those 2 are so cute together. And that is all that this show is.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding, guys. Like, there's no the big thing that we haven't talked about. There's no fighting really, and when there is fighting, it is usually over something that starts out fairly banal and then like kind of snowballs into a bigger thing. But there's no I don't think anybody yells. There's no yelling. We watched 46 episodes of the show. Nobody ever yells. There's no because it's a different, and we have to be careful here because I really don't want to say oh, well, that's just Japanese culture, because this show is absolutely not representative of what every Japanese
Yeah, they're
person
still
is like.
casting. These people are still deliberately chosen.
If we thought that this was representative of a typical Japanese life, then we would be saying that every Japanese person is either a model or an entertainer or a student of some sort,
or a dancer.
Yeah. But broadly speaking, there's no artificial like drama, and there's no like buck wild fights. Like it is the antithesis of Are You the One? This last season of Are You the One, where there were like fist fights every episode, and there were people would just get like too fucked up and couldn't handle it, and then would like attack somebody else, or there's no Geo. If you combined all of the nastiness that happened across the entire like series that we watched, it would not equal one day of Geo's nastiness on Are You the One? So like it is a very reserved show, by which I mean like you don't get a lot of stuff. Like if you want these two people who you think are cute together to kiss, they're gonna take a dozen episodes to get there.
And I'm curious, and this comes up later in the season, I'm curious how popular this show is in Japan, because the cast members seem to have a real awareness of the responsibility of being on this show. Like I am on display. I want to be seen as somebody who is a high achiever, and who is handling this appropriately. Judging
by the number of followers they all have on Instagram, because I did definitely start following some of them, it's pretty fucking popular. Okay, good. It's a pretty popular show.
The other thing I'll say before we get to the panel part of it is that there are no confessionals. Unlike Real World, there is no room where they go in by themselves and talk directly to the camera. So if you're going to find anything out about what people are thinking, you're going to have to hear them say it to somebody else, which is a huge shift.
So that combined with, I feel like everything we've said so far makes this sound like a very dry, very boring show where nothing ever happens, which isn't true. The characters, and I feel comfortable using that word because like I can remember all of them. I can remember there were. I don't want to reveal how many people are on the what is available on Netflix right now, because I feel like
there
that
are
is
more
kind
than
of,
6.
Yes, definitely. That's yes. I feel like they're characters. Like I can remember each and every one of them, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, because you find out. So when somebody enters, you find out their age, you find out their occupation, you find out if they're single or not, and then what their type is. Like right away.
It's like The Walking Dead. Rachel made a point of it's like the 3 questions they ask on Walking Dead. How many people have you killed?
Yeah.
It's so like the characters are so good. They're so wonderful, and you're rooting for them so much. This is the God's honest truth, and Rachel can attest to this. I cried watching this reality show.
Yeah.
Because of one of the characters.
Me too.
Like you want them to date, right? Like that's a natural response. And like this podcast is built on the back of like, oh man, these 2 real people on this reality show should kiss. So that's not so weird. You also want them to like do good. You want them to achieve this, like some of their like impossible dreams so much. And when they do, it's fucking incredible. Like
it's kind of like, to make a tie to Bachelorette Canada, which we just finished watching, and we said, you can watch a reality show where people are decent and still enjoy it because you're rooting for them. And that's the way Terrace House is. Like, you're rooting for these people.
And they're easy to root for because they're like, for the most part, they're great. Like, they're so great.
Yeah.
And there's no intervention. There's no producer intervention. Or if there is, it is extremely close.
Yeah.
It's just, and to a fault sometimes. Because there's some episodes where just like nothing happens. It's just building up to these 2 are finally going to go on a date.
Yeah.
So there's some episodes where just like I don't think they got their story right, but that just makes it so good.
Well, and yeah, this is a good transition. So the other reason you're rooting for them is because you're watching it with a panel who Griffin and I started referring to as our friends.
Yeah. So this is not this is one thing where I feel like I can say like there are a lot of Japanese TV shows where and reality shows where there is a panel most of the time is sort of picture in picture in like a little corner of the screen, sort of reacting to things as they happen in the show itself. So this is not a super uncommon thing, but this was the first time where I really got the value of that.
Yeah.
Because it is it was 6 people of various sort of roles in the entertainment industry. I don't know any of them.
Yeah, we don't know what they're famous for.
No, I know one of the guys, Tokue, is a host of some different stuff.
Yeah, they seem like very established, like either comedians or actors.
There's 5 of them. There's you, who is sort of referred to as like the mom of the group.
Yeah,
a lot
she's
of times,
the older woman on the show.
who makes some inappropriate comments about some of the younger dudes, which is really great. Raina Trindle, who I think is a model. I'm not entirely sure.
She's like a younger, very fashionable woman, and her role tends to be summarizing what just happened.
Yeah. And then there's Tokwe, who's he's the older man of the group, and he's pretty hysterical. Azusa is just another super fashionable comedian woman. Ryota Yamasato. I'm looking at these on Wikipedia. I don't think they ever announce what their names are, or if they do, it's in like episode
They
1.
talk to each other, and so you can pick it up. But
He's sort of like this is reductive, kind of pervy uncle guy. Like he says things, and everybody just reacts to him. Like
he seems
"You gotta
like
stop."
he seems like purely comedic. Like that is his role, and he is hilarious.
And then there's a boy. There's always a boy. There's
always
2
a
boys.
teen
They
boy.
rotate between boys. There's a boy who Rachel and I refer to as the boy prince because we did not know who he was. And he was just there. And he was like 14 years old. And he'd be like, "So what do you think, boy prince?" And he'd be like, "I like her very much." And it's like, what are you doing? You didn't talk this episode, boy prince. He gets replaced with I think a 16-year-old boy who's a bit more verbose, but still doesn't.
Why do you think they have somebody from that demographic? Do you think it's just supposed to be representative
Both
of
of
their
them, from what they said on the
watchers?
panel, like both of these boys are like successful in the Japanese film industry. So maybe
but
it's
like
just putting butts in the seats.
Do you think, or do you think the viewership, for example, is that age, and so they're trying to have somebody representative?
I don't know. I could make
That's
some
kind of
bullshit.
what
I could make
I
some bullshit up, but I
assume.
really don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I assume, because it's weird. Everybody on that set is an adult.
Yes.
And then there's just a
And then
teen.
there's just a boy. The panel, I know that was kind of long-winded, like telling you who they are, but like the dynamic between this panel is fucking amazing. It is, and the way that it is cut into the show, it always comes at a point where like there's some awkward ass dates on this show. There are some awkward scenes because a lot of these like relationships are kind of shoehorned in together, and when they don't work out, they fail catastrophically. And Rachel and I have a hard time watching awkward television shows, and so when those dates happen, it's like, oh my god, I need my friends. Where are my friends? Where are my friends? And then they're there to like completely dunk on these people for their bad date.
Occasionally they'll make references to characters or shows or movies that we're not familiar with, but most of the time they're just reacting in the way that we're reacting to something that just happened, and so you just feel like, oh, okay, good, I thought that was weird
But
too.
when something like funny happens on the show,
Yeah.
they show up and they like add to, like it multiplies what happens, and it affirms like what you think about, and it also like as American viewers who don't like understand everything about how stuff works in Japan, like it adds some context.
Yeah. Oh, and they're very aware. They're very aware of the show and the platform. So at some point they acknowledge that they're on Netflix.
There's a whole episode where Ryota does like little commercials for Netflix. Everything he says, he's like, they have a lot of other great programming. But they are. That's a good point. Like they know that this show's getting out to a more global audience, and so like I was not. There's no language barrier to the show. There genuinely isn't. There were no times where I felt lost or like I didn't understand. Obviously, like we watched it with subtitles. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the context of like the humor is. It just like. It still works. There's not like, it's not. I think that there's a gross characterization of like Japanese TV is like their TV shows are just so wacky. Like they're so zany and weird. Can you believe like whenever you hear about like a Japanese TV show like pops up on a blog, it's like look at this crazy thing. It's
like,
not that. It's just like
Lost in Translation is a great example.
Yeah. That's not this.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
So the panel is so spectacular and adds to the show in a really
great
wonderful way.
example, like without giving anything away, a great example, and Justin McElroy was just tweeting about this, is the meat crime episode.
There's an episode about the meat incident, and I don't think we should get into it here. I think we should get into it in like 5 minutes.
The panel adds a lot of value to that.
Yes, absolutely. I actually want to talk specifically about that after the spoiler break because it's the best thing that happens in the whole show. I think maybe we've gone about as far as we can go talking about the show generally. It's a show that will drip feed you good stuff until something amazing happens, and it is this release that is like so it's pure and wonderful. It's also like, if you are like, as a person who wants to get back to Japan so very badly and wants to travel and see more of Japan, and who basically wants to eat Japanese food 24 hours a day, there is a bit of like tourism to it. Like they eat and they cook so much amazing looking food at their house.
So that's the thing. The people that are selected for the show are generally pretty hip, it seems like.
Yeah.
They're either, artistic or in fashion or modeling, and they're all, like 18 to 30. So they seem to know all the cool restaurants and like cool clubs. And so you get to go to all these places that just look incredible. So we've enjoyed that part too.
Yes. Okay. I think we should talk a little bit more in detail. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back with, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. We'll figure it out as we go.
So we're going to start talking about the cast in chronological order.
And some of the moments. Well, I don't think we talk about it in chronological order. I think, first of all, thank you for listening to Rose Buddies. See you later. Okay.
The thing about what I like about chronological order is that people can hop out when they hear a name they don't know.
That's fair. Okay. Well, let's give them, let's at least give them power rankings. Can we do that? Like, because I want people to know, like, how they rank up. Because we'll start with the original 6, the 6 people who start the house, and this should be fine for you to listen to if you haven't. Yeah,
because you'll get this episode 1.
There is Makoto, Mako-chan, who is a baseball player a college baseball player who's in his like last few months. And he has this like tale of redemption where like for 1 year he like slacked off and quit the baseball team, and now he's like working so hard to get back in his coach's good graces, which is weird because we're watching Friday Night Lights right now also. That's the other show we've been sort of binging, and there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, so he's like a senior.
It's his last. I don't know how it works, but it's his last year playing baseball, and so he's trying to work it out. He's still kind of lazy.
Yeah.
Minori, who is a model, one of let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, this list says 4, but there are more than 4.
Yeah.
And she's also kind of lazy. Like she comparatively, right? Like compared to other folks working at the house, and there's some conflict, like, because she has this part-time job, and so she's trying to like figure out how much time she wants to spend on that and how much time she wants to be a model.
Is she the one? Oh.
She ends up in the relationship. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There's Yuki. Tap is basically what everybody refers to him as.
On the panel.
On the panel, they call him Tap because he is a tap dancer.
An incredible tap dancer.
So the best moment of his sort of role is like one of his last episodes. And by the way, now that we're after the spoiler break, we can kind of talk about the fact that everybody's the cast that you end with is there's nobody left from the cast that you start with.
It's a completely different cast.
Literally, I was reserved in talking about that before the spoiler break, but they switch out so quickly that by the end of the season, it is a completely unrecognizable cast. And that's not a bad thing because it's a really great cast they end up with. But he is a tap dancer, and for 6 episodes, he's kind of a very overbearing dude who wants to like comment on what everybody else's dreams are.
Yeah, he seems really judgy and wants everybody to be as ambitious as he is. And if they're not, he seems to have like a very stern reaction.
In episode
to it.
3, he like makes 2 of the women cry because he's like, "Your dreams are stupid."
Yeah, like wow, dude, I don't understand your dreams. They don't make any sense. But then
in like episode 6 or 7, they go to see one of his tap shows, and it is like this fucking like Shyamalan like twist because it's the best thing ever.
He's like a prize-winning tap dancer.
It's the dopest shit ever. It is such a great, like, Rachel and I were just like mouth agape looking at each other at this scene. There's Mizuki, who's an office worker who doesn't get she doesn't get a lot of stuff. I think like she tries to get a couple relationships going with a couple of the boys.
Is she the office worker that also works as a barista?
Yes. So
Okay.
that is her other thing. But like
She's the one who Tap makes cry, right? Because she
Yes.
wants to open her own shop, and he's like, I don't understand. How would you do that? That doesn't seem like you have any plans in place.
yeah. There is Tatsuya or Uchi, because his last name is Uchihara. Uchi is a hairstylist.
Oh my gosh. Who works at like the coolest looking hair salon that I guess is only open like 2 days a week.
And he makes a really bad first impression. We saw a lot of folks like talk about like they were kind of uncomfortable because in the first episode, like I think Uchi sort of leads this charge and is like, "Well, this is great. The women can all cook, and the men can." And it's like, "Oh, dude, no, that's." But he also he also dates all three of the women in the house. He has what's called Uchi Week in one of the early episodes, in which he takes each of the women on a date to like figure out who he likes, which is like bizarre, but also like one of the dates is really sweet. And then, spoiler here, this is the first relationship that we get out of this show is him and Minori. And there's some stuff that happens between those two that is so fascinating to watch, including the meat incident. Which should we just talk about the meat incident now?
Well, let's finish the cast.
Oh, the sixth person in the original cast is Yuriko, who is a med student, who Tap kind of tries to date, but she's
like
she's really busy with med school, and also she wants to get back with her ex-boyfriend, who is also a med student.
Yeah.
So those are the first six. That's who we start out with, and we get a lot of pretty wild stuff with these six. We get Uchi Week, where Uchi dates three of the women in the house in a single week. And, like, the other two dudes are also kind of pursuing the other... There's very little jealousy in this show, because there's lots of times where it's like, I'm interested in this person. Well, I'm interested in the same person. Well, let's both date them and see what happens.
Yeah.
But there's no like, confrontation, really. There's no, like...
Well...
It's just like, oh, well, go for it, and if she likes you better, then that's just how it is.
There's some serious conversations.
Yeah.
There's not confrontation like fighting. There's confrontation like...
Yes, but it's as long as... That stuff stems from, like, when you go behind their back to, like, bad talk the other person who is a suitor for the person that you're into, which which does happen a couple times. But, like, there's a weird stoicism on both sides of the aisle. It's not just, like, I'm not just talking about the dudes, like, the women also... When the show starts out, everybody's into Makoto, the baseball player, and they go on some dates with him, and it's never, like, a thing. It's never, like, a sticking point. Nobody ever fights about it. It's just like, well, let's see what happens. Which I thought was really interesting. Like, on Argue the One, it's like, you looked at the person I matched with last week, so I'm going to punch you in the neck now.
Yeah, it just, like, it makes me really wonder about how this show is billed, like, how it got started out, because everybody goes on, and the understanding is you are going to date other people on the house. Like, that's not something that, most reality shows, it's like, oh, maybe that'll happen as a side effect of all of us being in the same place. This show is like, you're single, I'm single, let's go on a date.
Let's talk about the meat incident now that we've gotten through the first six.
Okay.
And we'll go through some. There's so many cast members. I think we should just focus on our favorites and, like, their best moments. But of that original six, and actually it was after a couple of people had shuffled out, because Armon and Hikaru and I think Arisa were in the house at this point. There is the meat incident, which is sort of the first, like, truly standout moment of the show. It is a 2-episode dramatic arc in which Uchi, who works at this really slick salon, there's a lot of scenes of him, like, cutting the other people's hair, and he's fucking great at it. Like, he's a very, very good... Which somebody will, like, come back from work and they'll have, like, this fresh haircut, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, they swung by Uchi's place. But he gets this really fancy Wagyu beef from a client who came to his salon and, like, shipped it across the country to him as a gift. And at this point, him and Minori are dating. The model, who's in the original six, are dating, and they've been in a relationship for a bit, and it's really cute.
Well, they have kind of a weird relationship.
It's a weird relationship
though,
because they're both extremely quiet and somewhat passive-aggressive towards each other. But it's like the first sort of romantic payoff that you get in the whole show. And so I feel like I was attached to it because of that. But Minori, while he is at work, Minori's like, oh, we don't have any food in the fridge. Let's eat his fancy gift steaks. And so they cook it up, and her and a couple of the other guys in the house eat all his fancy Wagyu beef. And then he comes home and is so pissed off.
Yeah, he's devastated.
And explains like that client is like important to him and sent him the meat as a gift and sent like a letter explaining how to cook the meat and how to eat the meat properly. And so his Minori is like apologizing and he's not having any of it. And it's like a whole big thing. And the best part about this is the panel's reaction to it, because they just drag this, they drag everybody, but especially Uchi, who gets so upset that his special meat got eaten. Now I'm 100% on his side on this. If I got some fancy steaks, and you ate all of it, I love you and I want you to be nourished, but that dog won't hunt.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think on most reality shows when this happened, it would be over dramatized. And on this one, the panel actually makes fun of the fact that it has become so dramatic.
They do this thing a lot where they talk about scenes that they want to happen, which is an interesting thing. Like, they're talking about it like it is a scripted show, but it's obviously it isn't. And so they talk about they want this confrontation between Uchi and Minori, where Uchi is like a jealous lover almost. Like, did you cook the meat with oil? You didn't need to. There was a fatty cut of meat. And it was like they keep going on and on and on about how this process could be, how this scene could be this huge dramatic flare up, which is sometimes, I mean, they're kind of right, because it does turn into like a huge deal in the house, so much so that it carries over into a second episode.
And it's symptomatic of the other problems that I feel like Minori and Uchi have, which is like they don't communicate well. They don't want the same things.
No.
And this is just an example of like him feeling disrespected.
So this ends with her getting shot down by him. He's like, I'm too angry to talk to you right now. And then like he's like sulking for like a couple days and doesn't hang out with everybody else. And some folks try to come and talk to him. And it culminates in this scene where Minori goes to see him and he like breaks down in tears, which is like not... There's also not a lot of like raw emotion like that. There's not a lot of like crying on that. Well, I guess there is a little bit, but Uchi is this sort of silent, stalwart dude, and he breaks down in tears over this meat. But he explains like it's just so much other stuff, and it's been so stressful living, and I feel like you and I don't talk anymore, and I'm worried about us. And like this meat incident turns into like a very serious conversation that they both walk away from with like an even better relationship. And it's weirdly like it resolves in a really sweet, really tender way.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of a perfect example of like, oh, this is a charming little kerfuffle that they've gotten themselves in. Oh no, like this is actually a big deal. And then it turns into like something cute.
That reminds me. So the other thing that we get introduced to through Uchi and Minori is the Japanese style room.
Yeah,
right?
So there's like a room in their house that they did not know about.
They're the first couple. It's kind of like a boom boom room. If you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like, it is a Japanese style room, and that it's
which
just
means like the mats like right on the floor that you sleep on, and
yeah, it's not like
their other rooms there's like a 3 bunk bed situation. Well, I mean, there's 2 on the ground and then one sort of positioned up above the 2 other ones, and that's what the boys' room and the girls' room looks like.
But this is a room designed for like a couple to sleep in,
right? Yeah.
And so since they're the first official couple, they go into the room.
Yes.
And it's interesting because the show is, I don't want to say prudish, but is very conservative.
Yeah. Again, compared to any
real
show
world.
Any show we've ever talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that they're like, all right, this is the room where you get to go be a couple and do the things that couples do. Which
it turns on a dime. Like, like it is very much like, did you hold her hand on this date? Yes, I did. And then once they're in a relationship, all bets are off. Like, hey, y'all fucking today? I was just thinking about I was thinking about the panel and how great it is. Is that sort of like like in America, like I feel like we've only just started doing that with like Talking Dead, and like I mean that's sort of Chris Hardwick's whole like industry is like the after show.
But this is
It's
simultaneous.
a during show, right?
Yeah.
I guess we're kind of in that category too, right? Like there are people who listen to this and get the same stuff out of this for the Bachelor and Bachelorette that we get out of the panel, where it's like, you know, people talking about like reaffirming your things. And
You wouldn't just watch the panel. You know, like people just listen to our show without watching anything.
I wish we could do it simultaneous. I wish we could do it somehow a simultaneous Rose Buddies episode while
I can't.
the logistics of that are a lot.
Yeah, it's too stressful.
So that was the meat incident. We can't describe it in a way that is going to be good, but like the panel's reaction to it, Rachel and I watched that our first day as parents. We were at the hospital, just sort of like curled up in her hospital bed with the iPad in our lap, watching the meat incident episode, and just I felt bad for you because like you were recovering and like cracking up laughing at the meat incident because it was such a weird like thing for everybody in the house to get embroiled in this huge fight about that turned into like a really, really sweet like makeup. Like, oh man, so good.
You just want to hit some of our faves?
Let's talk about some of our favorite people and like some of the best. Like, should we do here? I kind of want to do like a top 3 boys. Like, who's the best boys? Who's your favorite hottest boys? You know, freshest boys. Who's like funny and like cute? Oh, is he waking up? Oh no! Oh god!
No, he's okay.
Okay. Number 3 boy.
Oh, number 3.
Who's your number 3 boy? And I feel like we should come to a consensus. I'll say this. He was from me. You know who my number 3 boy is?
Who?
And we could talk about this because this is another relationship.
Is it Armand?
No, God, he ranks so much higher than that, and you should know that.
Okay.
Yuki.
Yuki.
But then again, he was like one of the last people to show up, so we are getting into like super spoiler territory.
Yeah.
There's a boy named Yuki. He's very good. Let's talk about Armand because like he's actually the next person that comes into the house.
So Armand. Oh, this is helpful. The Wikipedia page lists how many episodes he was on.
All of them.
Okay, this won't give anything away. So the least number of episodes that a person was on is 8. Armand was on 36 episodes.
Hell yeah. So my dude Armand is, I believe, half Iranian, half Japanese dude from Hawaii.
Yeah.
So whenever a new character is introduced, you get this like sequence of like shots from behind them or like below their neck, so you can't see them until they are revealed when they walk into the house for the first time. And so he's having a conversation in English with some of his friends in Hawaii, like sitting on a beach. He is an aspiring firefighter.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't leave. A lot of folks will, if they get shot down in a relationship that they pursue, or they have trouble sort of making progress with their career or their dream or whatever, they say...
Or if it becomes clear that they're not going to match with anybody in the house.
Yes, then they say, well, I've had fun here, but I've gotten everything I'm going to get out of this, so I'm going to bounce. My dude, Armand, is like... I'm good here. Like, this is a dope setup. This is a nice-ass house in, like, one of the most expensive cities in the world that I don't have to pay for. And it's sick, and I don't have to... I'm, you know... He doesn't work for some of the time, although he gets a job at, like, a landscaping place.
His very first episode, he shows up, and he's got this very specific, valuable skill, which is that he is bilingual. He can speak English, and so...
Trilingual. He speaks, I think, Farsi, too.
Oh, yeah. And so he shows up, and is like, I'm going to...
I completely forgot about this.
First episode, goes on an interview, says, I'm going to teach English. And everyone's like, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really marketable skill.
So there's a scene, they filmed him going in for this interview, and then like later in the episode, he's down in the game room with the other boys, and they're like, how did it go? He's like, oh, I didn't get the job. And it's never brought up again. He never, ever tries to do this thing again.
It makes it seem like there is only one place in which to do this, and he doesn't get that job, so he just doesn't do it.
He's there to party. And he's a funny, like, very, very, very charming dude. But it's just interesting that everybody else leaves. Everybody else is like, I think I've gotten everything I want to get out of this, so I'm gonna go. Armand just doesn't leave. Armand is there for the rest of the season, and that means like you know him so well by the end of it. Like, I love this dude, and all I wanted was for him to have a girlfriend. I just because he tried more than any other person who is in the show. He dates so many people and gets shot down so many times.
Yeah.
He has a really great date with Arisa, who's the next woman that comes into the house. She's a hatter. There's a word for a person who makes hats. Do you know? It's like a fancy word. Oh, babe. You know
haberdasher?
A haberdasher.
Is that right?
I think so. And he tries to date her, and it seems like it's going well. And he has he goes to some party and gets really drunk and is hungover and forgets the next morning while he's super hungover that they were supposed to go on this date at an amusement park. And so this poor dude and this poor woman go on this date where Armand is sneaking off to barf every hour. It's so funny.
That's what was so funny. So you can tell, us as the viewer, we're watching this date happen and we can tell he's not feeling well. But we only find out that he has been sick 6 times because he gets back and he's telling his housemate about it. And he's like, oh man. He's like, I had to keep running to that bathroom.
And this is something I want to stress about why I enjoy this show so much is when this dude got woken up by his date to go and he was hungover and still went to the amusement park and was barfing. The whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking I can't fucking wait to hear what my friends have to say about this. And sure enough, the panel comes in and just opens up on this dude.
They're really, for a long time, they're really hard on Armand because he is the exception in that he does not have a specific goal.
You find out at the end that he gets a job at this landscaping company and you see 2 scenes of him working, but he's actually working there the whole time. And for example, he enters the show as a aspiring firefighter, and the reason I laughed is that never comes up. It's also a weird thing, just go to firefighter school, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's a weird thing to travel to Japan.
Yeah,
to be a firefighter in Hawaii.
Here's the thing, dude. If I was offered, obviously not now, but if I was Armand's age and it was come to Japan, what's your dream? And it's I'll make up a dream if it means I get to live in Japan for a bit.
So part of the reason that he is fluent in Japanese is that he lived the first 10 years of his life in Japan.
So yeah, he knows the lay of the land a bit. But Armand's just great. I think Armand is great because he's your constant.
At first I thought he was kind of a bum. I felt like he was kind of mooching off of the experience in a way that nobody else was. It wasn't until the very end of the show where I wanted so badly.
Again, the last 5 episodes, something crazy happens to Armand, and then things get good for the boy. We were cheering. We just finished it today. Or last night. We were cheering for this dude.
Yeah.
I've never been rooting for somebody. I rooted for Armand more than anybody else in the house because he had the most to gain, I guess.
Griffin looked him up on Instagram specifically.
I'm following that on Instagram now. He might listen. I don't know.
No, probably not.
We could get. Somebody will tweet at him. Armand, I've never rooted for anybody like that on a reality show before because he goes through some shit on this show and he's such a nice dude and he's there for so long that you get to know him and you see him fail in all of these different relationships and you just want it to work out for him so bad. I've never felt that empathy for somebody on a reality show before, and the reason that it works is because I bought into it 100% because there's no interventions from the people making the show, and so the things that happen on the show you just accept wholesale. This is real. These 2 people are dating. They're really dating. They're not dating for the show, and they weren't forced together by some producer. Yeah, these 2 are dating.
Nobody makes them date. Nobody picks the location for them. Nobody sets rules around the number of dates or how long you have to make something work. It's all on them. So if they go on a date and it's not good, they just don't go on any more dates.
So this is actually the second run. This 46 episode run, Boys and Girls in the City, is actually the second of the Terrace House saga. The first I don't know anything about because it's not subtitled anywhere or available really to watch anywhere. but it also ran for a while as well. And we should also mention, because we haven't talked about it, there's a third run called Aloha State that takes place in Hawaii that is supposed to start airing. If you don't live in America, I think some of our Canadian listeners, lucky you, I think you can actually start watching it in real time right now. I've seen that from some Canadian Rose Buddies fans. America, I think we're getting it in January. I'm waiting with bated breath.
Yeah.
But as long as this show has been running, only like 5 relationships have come out of it. Most folks just leave, and they don't find romance or happiness in the house at all. So it's not like something that's just like a guarantee. So like, I don't know, man. When it happens, it's just really good. Armand is the best.
So my number 2 is Yuki.
Yuki's really great. And Yuki is the last boy that comes in the house, so I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to talk, no matter what, I don't want to talk about the last 5 episodes because they're too good to spoil for anybody, even accidentally.
Yeah.
But he's just a good boy, and we can talk about you want to tell him what his career is?
Oh, so we've seen a tap dancer. We see a ballerina at one point, and then Yuki comes in, and Yuki is also a dancer. Mm-hmm. And an important thing is that when somebody comes on the show, you don't see their intro in the title sequence until after they've entered. So when he enters, we don't know anything about him. And the cast is asking him, like, oh, what kind of dance do you do? Because at this point, they've seen a couple dancers go through. And he starts talking about crumping.
He's a crumper, and he
does
talks about how his dream is to be in the background of a Chris Brown video, which is such a weird sentence to say.
Yeah.
And he is. There are a couple times in this show.
He also works at a burger restaurant.
He works at a burger restaurant. Yes,
yeah.
He's a very good boy. There's a couple times in this show where just the array of personalities that are in the house at a given time, things kind of stagnate. There's a really bad dip in the middle, and it's still good TV. It's still like fun to watch, but there's times where like the cast is really close, and I love watching like genuine friendships get made. That's actually one of my favorite things about Bachelor and Bachelorette is when they, when you get that Jade and Carly like friendship, real like. I like watching people become friends, and this is a show where that happens a lot of times, but there's certain times where things stagnate a bit, and people don't really talk when they have problems, and they just don't interact with each other very much, and then somebody will come into the house and, like, put the issues up on the table. I'm talking specifically about Natsumi here, who is a very controversial figure in the show. I liked her. Rachel did not.
I did not.
But she got up in the mix, and Yuki does the same thing, where he's like, hey, this thing sucks. Let's all talk about it, or else we're not going to like pull through. We're not going to be friends. There's certain people who are like, I want us to be friends after we leave this house. Let's stop being polite and start getting real.
Yeah, can you imagine anybody on this season saying the cliche, I'm not here to make friends?
No.
I feel like they all...
if you're not there, leave. That's the only thing.
They're all literally there to make friends.
Yeah. And so Yuki does that, and he also like... He's also a great dude. Oh, another one of his arcs is that he's trying to date one of the women in the house, but is having trouble passing his driver's test.
Yeah,
it's a whole thing.
He's real funny and sweet, and he has this kind of flirtation with one of the women, and it's just adorable to watch.
We also learned that there's a little magnetic chevron sticker thing that you have to put on the front and back of your car for the first year that you're a driver in Japan.
Yeah, when he finally gets his license, they show him getting in the car and putting these decals on the car, which we found out you have to do when you get your license.
I feel like that's one of like dozens of little things that like, because we studied a lot about Japan before we went. I put together like a 50-page document that was like sort of our travel guide, and I took a Pimsleur class in the like and basically that just amounted to me like being able to say like, I would like 2 seats at this restaurant and 2 beers please. I didn't even approach fluency, but like I feel like I learned a lot about not so much Japanese culture but stuff like that, and also like conversation, not the language itself but like how it works just from watching the show. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Why don't we do that in America? I guess we have the student driver flag that we put up when they're like learning, but like it's crazy to think like, well, I passed 1 test, I'm good to go forever.
Yeah, that you can't identify on the road who is brand new.
Yeah, Yuki's good. He comes in at the end, so let's not spoil anything.
Do you want to talk about our number 1?
I mean, I'm sure it's the same person, right? Hansan. So Hansan, is the only person that comes. His name is San is obviously the honorific. He's Yuto Honda, but I think his real name is said once.
Yeah,
and
everybody
then for the
calls
rest
him
of
Hansan.
which is another, like, everybody has nicknames. So that was actually one thing that I had a hard time. I even feel like I understand how, like, those honorifics like San and Chan and stuff like that work, but like Rico, there's a girl named Rico that they called Rico Pin, and I didn't understand that, and it makes it hard because essentially, like, they have two names, kind of.
Yeah,
and when you don't speak the language, like, it can be kind of tough to keep it straight.
That's, I think a lot of people that maybe tried to watch this show but bailed had difficulty, because I know I did. When you first start watching, it's hard to keep everybody straight and get used to the pacing of the show because it's so unfamiliar. But I promise you, like, I'm so bad with names. There are characters on this show who I never really learned their name, and I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. Hansan is the only person that comes into the house with a significant other. He has a girlfriend. He is not.
Well, he doesn't bring her.
Didn't bring her, but everybody else comes into the house single and ready to mingle.
He is not.
He has
ready.
a girlfriend, and so and he is an architect, and he is a very busy man.
And he wants to go to graduate school overseas.
He is building, like, a front facade for a cafe in Tokyo. He has all of these little projects, but he's always hunched over his computer working. But it takes again, I mentioned those two things that everybody's there to do, which is date and chase their dreams. He has one of those is not happening for him. He leaves the house and still is in a relationship with his girlfriend. So it's not like there's any drama there. He is not this romantic conquest. Instead, he is this leader of the house.
Yeah, he's like a guardian angel almost.
Where, like, he's in there with a fairly. He was in there with in that dip I was talking about, where, like, everybody was kind of immature and not the best arrangement of cast members that there were.
Yeah, like nobody seemed to really know how to take care of themselves. Like, nobody could cook, nobody would clean. They would kind of bicker with each other, and he would just drop these wisdom bombs.
There are countless scenes.
Yeah.
Where
my favorite is the conversation with Arman.
Which one?
The one where they're all talking about their ambitions, and he's talking.
Oh, God.
He's talking to Arman, who, we know is supposedly wants to be an aspiring firefighter, and Hansan is like, I don't know that that's really what you want or really what makes sense for you.
He's like, you're not supposed to be a firefighter. You're just supposed to be happy. Like, he says stuff like that makes it sound like you're reading this off of something. Yeah. He is impossibly eloquent, and every time anybody has any problem, you just see, like, the camera will cut, like, the scene will cut to him, like, in the kitchen working on his laptop, and you'll see Arisa walk in, and you'll be like, oh, Arisa's about to get a spoonful of wisdom, and it's all so. He's the sweetest dude.
The episode where Griffin and I both cried involves him.
Yeah, everybody else does. He leaves at a certain point, and his departure, like, weeping.
Yeah,
weeping.
Us and the panel and, like, everybody.
The panel loves him. Like, everybody on the panel wants to marry Hansan.
At first, I didn't buy into the hype because there was so much hype, and I just felt like he's not there to date. He doesn't seem particularly, like, interested in being part of the house, and I was just like, I don't know that I buy into him being this, like, really cool character. But by the end,
fucking rules
for sure.
He's got a studio.
Yeah, the atelier.
Is that what I was going to say that word, but I feel like I was going to screw it up.
Yeah, it's bad. Like his workshop where he does his architect stuff.
It's just so fucking cool.
Yeah. Oh, and him and Arisa collaborate.
That's it. Yeah, a couple times, like, people are like, I'm working on. Arisa is having this show for her hats
gallery. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, let me design a display stand for you. That's another thing. Like, we talked about, like, how you're either there to help other people date or to help them achieve their dreams. For a couple of them, especially Arisa, is the haberdasher. Haberdasher is nothing. And she puts on this show, and, like, there's so many scenes of, like, Hansan designing these display stands and people coming to her, like, the place where she's doing the show and, like, painting the walls and, like, building these stands for her. Like, everybody is so kind to each other.
Yeah.
For the most part. There's some kerfuffles. I'll admit it. There's some fights that happen from time to time. But nothing ever gets out of hand.
They always want to resolve it. There's always a push. Whenever anybody has a disagreement, there is a push to get resolution.
And what's great about Hansan is, like, when the fights become... There's Natsumi, who I brought up and Rachel's not a fan of, and I still like her. There were, she had a few, like, kind of kerfuffles in a row, and it would always end with Hansan just, like, just flying in like Batman and just be like, here's where I think the communication breakdown's happening.
Yeah.
And just fix it.
Natsume, my problem with her, so she lacks some social skills, which obviously that's just a reality for some people, and it seems like she actually has like a real problem connecting with people, and I get that. But I feel like she also kind of uses that to her advantage. She kind of plays it up. Anytime she gets called on something that could be construed as, antagonistic or, I don't know, unfeeling. She's just always like, oh, well, I mean, what should I not have said something? Should I not have been honest? Or, am I supposed to pretend? And I just felt like you're playing it up, lady. You know what you're doing.
But I will say she is also like that type of person that I talked about. A really great example of this is her and Minori were in the house at the same time. Minori is the model who was in the house first, who was dating Uchi, and they didn't get along because Natsumi made fun of their relationship because they were constantly having these little passive aggressive fights. And so there were some conflicts in the house because of that. And she made everybody sit down and was like, we're all being super polite to each other. And that is no way for us to like live together for as long as we're going to live together, because we're just going to be walking on eggshells. Yeah. And so they have this like agonizing conversation that was really hard to watch. And then by the time that she leaves, her and Minori are like best buds. And there's like this huge tearful goodbye. Like the friendships that form in this show and the relationships that form in this show, like, are so like, I don't know, they're tested and like really, really, they're just so great. I think we're probably, I don't know what else there is really to talk about.
Yeah, like this stuff that Griffin and I saw at the end is very dramatic, and it's tempting to talk about, but
I don't want to ruin it for you. Watch the show. Please, God, watch the show. It's my favorite show of the year. A lot of people were watching Westworld last night. We were watching the finale of this show because it's soothing. It was soothing at a time where things for us are not even remotely soothing.
Yeah.
It is Justin called it a spa day for your emotions, which I think is an accurate way to put it. But like, it is also this ideal of the show that I've been talking about on this podcast for a while, where it's like, you don't need a bunch of bullshit. You don't need a bunch of like scripted bullshit. You don't need a bunch of like artificial fights. You don't need two rivals built on the back of nothing.
Or people chosen specifically because they're terrible.
Right. You don't need things that you put in a show because you think like this has to be like, there has to be a villain. There has to be a villain. You don't need that stuff. Like, and I'm going to get super preachy here for a bit, but I feel like when people started doing reality shows, it was like, we've moved so far away from what that ideal was. Like, this is just real people just like us, just doing their stuff. And we're just really looking and seeing what's going on here. Yeah. I think especially that was like the design of Real World when it started out, which is why we keep making this comparison. But like, Bachelor don't do that no more. It's not like, I cannot watch, and I still love this show, and we're going to talk about it very soon, January 3rd. Nick Viall, what's he up to? I can't watch it without seeing the angles, because they're not. It's not hard to see. Like, come on, like there's gonna be a villain. There's gonna be a bunch of this artificial bullshit. And maybe Bachelor's not the best show to talk about because it is a completely different beast from what Terrace House is. But like, it is so refreshing to watch a show where it's just like people living their lives. And whatever happens is real, and maybe it's not explosive, and maybe stuff doesn't happen every episode. But when it does, the payoff for that is this show has created a void for me now that nothing else I don't think is going to fill. Because there is no other show I've watched like Terrace House where it's like, this friendship that just happened is real because it wasn't. There was no staging to it. This relationship that happened took so long to get to, and is so good because it seems so authentic.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's. I think I would enjoy the show. Obviously, like I like Japan, and that was certainly a reason why I enjoyed it. But like, I would enjoy it no matter where it was.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and we'll figure that out once they do the Hawaii season.
Yes, although it will still be, I believe, Japanese speaking castmates, and
I assume so.
So yeah, that's a good point. Like that'll
show us.
That
I mean,
will
not
be a
that-
thing in January.
Not that Hawaii is like, some bland place.
No,
that-
it's gonna be dope as fuck. But like, it's not. The reason why this show works is because it is reserved, and that's not. I mean, I guess that's maybe a Japanese thing, but it's it is the opposite of these like. These crazy staged reality shows. I
can't let go of the difference the lack of confessionals make. Like, I think that is a big part of it.
It takes you out of the, like, when it cuts to a person just talking into a camera, first of all, the whole time I'm thinking, like, did this happen before this fight happened? Did this happen after?
Are they being coached into sounding worse than they, because we watch a lot of Bachelor, Bachelorette where people will say despicable things on those one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And you'll think, like, did they get led to say that? Or is that actually how they felt?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, or they have opportunities to contradict themselves or to talk trash about other contestants. That very well could have happened in Terrace House. But since it doesn't exist, we don't, we just take it at face value.
It's a weird, like, the show shifts perspective when you do that. Where it's like, I'm going to comment on the thing that you're watching right now. Like, you don't need to. I'm also watching it. There's a better way to get that information out there. Maybe that's not a good, like, in Bachelor, like, the Bachelor has to do that stuff, I feel like. And the Bachelorette has to do that stuff because, like, setting up the scene. Like, we're in Hawaii and having a great time. I'm really excited to go on these dates. But, like, I totally get what you're saying. Like,
I mean, think about, like, if after Lauren B went on a date with Ben, she came back to the room and we watched her have a conversation with her bunkmates about how the date went. That would set a very different tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if that after Paradise or whatever the after show is happened intercut with the rest of the show live? No, that probably wouldn't be very
Yeah, that'd be hard to do. But yeah, I love the panel so much. I can't imagine watching the show without the panel.
They get really horny at the end, like, inexplicably.
Yeah, the show is so reserved, and so then it's funny to cut to the panel and have them like talk very explicitly about like all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Terrace House.
That's Terrace House.
I don't know that this was our most like explosive, hysterical episode of Rose
this
Buddies
is
ever.
People I think a lot of times ask us to do shows or do episodes about shows we love.
Right.
Like, oh, wouldn't it be great if Griffin and Rachel did this show? When we love a show,
we get into book report territory. Like, we are not doing that thing that I talked about. We are not the panel in this episode. We are fucking like huge fans who like don't understand everything about the show, but like fucking love it so much. This is a paid Netflix advertisement.
I know.
Like, it's so good. If you know anybody at Netflix, please get them to put the first run of Terrace House. Like, the fact that I have a month where I don't have new Terrace House is terrifying to me. It's terrifying. There's our first joke of the episode.
So what do we? So that's all we're gonna do for Terrace House, at least until Aloha comes out.
You know we're gonna get crazy up in Aloha. So what are we doing next week?
Well, I mean, we have a couple suggestions.
Oh yeah, what were the suggestions? Great American Baking Show.
No, we have to stick to dating.
There might be dating that happens on like, hey, great pie. Let's French.
That's French.
That's a good biscotti. Come here. Let's touch mouths. I would like to talk about the co-host of that show that isn't Mary Berry.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't even remember his name.
I don't either. But
it's not Paul Hollywood.
It sure as fuck ain't Paul. You know what? It actually looks like a dude that then would have the name Paul Hollywood.
It does.
Because he's got like a lot of Ed Hardy wardrobe and a little goatee and black spiky hair.
So at least for the next couple weeks, we're going to stick to shows that we don't have to take notes on. So we've gotten some suggestions to do an episode on our love. To specifically talk about how we got together.
That could be fun. That would be a short one, I feel like. That'd be an easy one to knock out. Just be like...
That makes our relationship sound uncomplicated.
It was just like, what's up? You gonna do this thing? And you were like, yeah. And then you got me pregnant.
A real junior situation.
It was a real junior sitch. A lot of tubes.
Another thing I've thought about is just talking about the Bachelor, Bachelorette, like, franchise generally. But I don't know if that would be...
I wouldn't know what to talk about. Well, one thing that you and I floated was we go back and we watched the first season of Bachelor. 'Cause
which is on ABC.
Oh, is it? I thought it was on Hulu.
No, I think it's on ABC.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're probably going to stick with this, like, we're not going to go episode by episode because we've only got a few weeks left until the new season. So I think we're going to do some big
And I think maybe the
recaps.
last episode before, the last episode in December, maybe we do a preview.
Yes.
Preview app.
30 women, y'all.
30 women. 30.
Nick will be choosing between 30 women.
XXX.
That's
And Roman
historic,
numerals.
right? That's the most ever.
It is historic, yes. Not just for this show.
For our nation.
For our world. For history and time and stuff. For our civilization. It is momentous.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, don't drop this ball. Nick's totally going to drop the fucking ball, isn't he?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by that? What is
He's just going to step in it.
what does dropping the ball mean?
He's just really going to goof it up, isn't he? 30 women? No way. No way.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Oh, for those of you that are wanting to do a fantasy league, we recommend the rosereckoner.com.
Mm-hmm.
It was made by our fan Drew Davidson, who put together a website for people to use, which we may use this time ourselves because it's so much easier than keeping
we're
score
shit at tracking
on
that
pieces of
stuff.
paper.
Yeah, it's fun if you've never done a league with us. This will be what? This will be like the 2-year anniversary or the 1-year anniversary when we start next season because we started with Ben at the
We
beginning.
did start with
Can
Ben.
you believe that? We haven't even been doing this show a year yet.
Yeah.
That's bonkers to me. We've covered so much ground. Like, do you remember when we were talking about like, Please Marry My Boy? That was this year.
I know. That's crazy. 2016 was a wild one for us.
Yeah. You know we have this new co-host. He didn't add a whole lot.
No, well, he's like the boy prince on Terrace House.
He's the boy prince of Rose Buddies.
You all should see the fancy coat he's wearing.
He is wearing a very fancy coat. Also, he's in 3 very popular movies. 3 box office chart toppers. He's waking up. Oh God, babe. We gotta end the episode. Oh God, babe, quick. Please watch Terrace House. It's important to me. I won't talk to you unless you do.
Whoa.
That's it. That's where it is. Travis literally started watching it because Justin and I made a bunch of Terrace House references on my Bim Bam today. We talked about the omu rice.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Guys, see, this is gonna be Rose Buddies. We're gonna be talking about fucking Nick's season of Bachelor, and we're gonna be like, remember the omu rice? And if you don't get it, then like it is the codex through which you will translate Dan Brown style our fucking podcast from this
I'm just
point on.
hesitant to be so assertive because it is 46 episodes.
30-minute long episodes. That's 23 hours.
The way you said that.
so much
Like, Rachel,
time.
it's not a big deal.
We had in the last 2 weeks we had a baby, and almost one of those whole days we spent watching this show.
We're really hoping, though, that our baby is now bilingual.
Yeah, it was immersion, language immersion. I almost said language immersion therapy. That's not what it's called. It's also it's tough. It's not even an easy show to watch with a baby because we have to read the subtitles. I kept
Oh my
doing this
gosh, I
thing
know.
where I'd like get on I'd be watching it and like hanging out with you and watching it, and then I'd like get on my computer real quick and I'd look up and I'd be like, oh, I have no fucking idea what's going on.
I know, that
Oops.
kept happening. I'd be looking down at Henry because I'd be feeding him, and then I would look up and I would have no idea where we were.
We had to rewind like a lot, especially that panel. That panel moves fast.
Yeah.
Please watch Terrace House. We'll let you know in the Facebook group what we're going to do for next week. So keep an eye out there. And thank you all for sticking with us last week while we were out. And thank you all again for all the very, very kind gifts. I cannot stress this enough. Like, it means a lot. And we are so set up now because our nursery is just stocked with all your kindness. So thank you. Oh, here you go.
Oh, he's getting hungry. Okay.
I heard him poop. This kid poops like a train.
I don't remember how we end the show.
Thanks for listening. I'm Griffin McElroy.
I'm Rachel McElroy.
When you're ready.
Final rose. Stay with us on this journey of joy.
Spoiler alert.
She ends up with Soldier Boy.
Right reason.